Oh, that's so nice and toasty. Chilly winter day. Hey, want to make sure that you guys know that this episode of the Higher Line podcast has been brought to you by Ignis Lux Coffee. Ignis Lux, Latin for firelight. A reminder to let your fire burn bright. We are only here but for a little while, and there's no sense in drinking crummy coffee when there's coffee like this available. Small batch roasted in fluid bed roasters. Check that out. Less than 1% of all the coffee in the world is done in fluid bed roasters. Why? Because it's more work, but it gives you a much better product. IgnisLuxCoffee.com. Roasted fresh, sent right to your door. Check it out. Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, Mickey with CarryTrainer.com and the Higher Line podcast. My man Drew behind the editing desk and cameras. Bringing you a solo episode today of the Higher Line. I want to talk to you about something that comes up often, something that my friends and I and students and followers seem to have a constant discussion on. A few topics that we're going to dig into today. One of them, not quitting. Success through failure, and what that means. Success through failure, kind of a weird dichotomy of words, right? Success through failure. I kind of want to talk about the paths that we take in life and how sometimes the best laid plans, as the great poet said, don't always take us where they want to go, not where we want to go, not what the poet said. I kind of want to also dig into one more thing, forgiveness, and we'll talk about that throughout this discussion. So, success. I'm nobody from nowhere. I'm neither a billionaire nor am I a pauper, somewhere in between. And in the big scheme of life, I just got back from Costa Rica. I'll tell a story there. Went down to Costa Rica. My good friend and training partner and coach in jiu-jitsu, Dan Hart, just finished up his annual camp where he donates every penny to Hero Academy in a little town called Tamarindo, Costa Rica. Beautiful town. Our friends Ron and Holly run the non-for-profit there. And basically it helps the local kids dig into the martial arts life, in this case jiu-jitsu, and there's some striking there, as well as helping them with things like food, some clothing issues, school supplies, things like that. I wouldn't say it's a super poor area, but it's an area where there's not a lot of resources, where there's not a lot of ability to get things in and out. It's very expensive to get things in and out of Costa Rica in general, that part out on the coast especially. And of course, the world is full of places like that. But as I'm there, I'm thinking to myself, I'm sitting on the beach, drinking fancy drinks, staying in fancy places with my fancy friends, and we're able to go on jet planes and travel there, and I've been there several times. Thinking, wow, I'm pretty damn lucky. And I started pondering while I was out on the beach, different places that I've been in my life, from where I came from as a small boy to where I am today. Which again, this is not some speech where I'm going to say, look what I've done, you can do it too. That's not what I'm saying. It was more me analyzing this road that I've walked, and a lot of it wasn't on purpose. A lot of things that are in my life I have in spite of myself. What I mean by that is it's not because of anything I've done. It's because somebody's helped me. It's because somebody's given me an opportunity, a chance. Granted, I had to take those opportunities or chances. I'm also sitting here right now because I've messed up. I've lied, cheated, stole, was dishonest, dishonorable. And I'm talking from the age of 10 until even recently. We all mess up, right? I remember as a child, you get in trouble. I was a bad kid. By bad, I mean I was a troublemaker. That's a whole nother story. I don't believe that children are inherently bad. I think we're products of the place that we're raised in and the people around us. But I got in plenty of trouble. And I remember thinking about like adults, because adults were the ones that were always telling me as a kid, do this, don't do that. You're in trouble because you did this and didn't do that, right? And I remember as a kid thinking, man, like all these adults must be perfect. I literally thought that. I don't mean perfect in the sense that they didn't mess up, like they didn't spill their Ignis Lux coffee. Delicious stuff. I'm not saying that, but you know, they didn't steal, they didn't lie, they didn't show up late. You know, whatever the things that you get in trouble for as a young person, cheating, etc. I just assumed they didn't do any of those things because they were always telling me to. So if they had the right to kind of like put this blanket of rules on me, they must have these rules down. And of course, as you get to be an adult, you find out that's very far from the truth. From the presidency to the policemen in your town to doctors and principals, bus drivers and carpenters, humans do human things. As my good friend Z likes to say, people gonna people. And I sat out on this beach, and I'm very fortunate to be there, but I'm just thinking, man, I am only here because I effed up a bunch. And I don't mean like I effed up, thus I was rewarded in life, but as a young man, I did not have much vision. I was a multi-generations of tradesmen, carpenters before me, all the way back to Austria hundreds of years ago. Men in my family were carpenters, and I thought that was like the measure of a man. I still have a very soft, special place in my heart for tradesmen or tradeswomen, but dudes and dudettes that can go in all elements and work and produce homes and buildings and whatever it is you're making, and do a good job in all of the different temperatures and weather conditions and ages, right, as we age, and get that done. That's commendable, right, for okay pay, right? You're not making millions of dollars to work with your hands. And so I always thought that that was like the epitome of a dude, like some brawny carpenter climbing up on a wall and setting rafters or something, because those were the guys that I saw that were like the big tough dudes, right? Maybe you looked up to football players, maybe you looked up to soldiers, but that was like what I had in front of me. And I'm a tradesman at heart. I still put the tool bags on from time to time. I ran a construction company business for years, doing everything from digging fence posts in to building homes. And so you look at that, and that was like my kind of sphere of what my life would be, right? Maybe I can make enough money, build a house, raise family, etc. And instead, what I did was screwed up a marriage, made some kids, did the best I could to be their dad, lost a wife, which wasn't just my fault, but being young and dumb, you do stupid stuff. Raised the kids as best I could in a broken home, which sucks. And they grow up, and you look back and you say, I wish I could have done this different. I wish I could have done that different. I wish. And truth be told, unless you're murdering people or hurting people, the mistakes we make, we've got to own them, which is where forgiveness comes in. I spent so much of my life, even into my 40s. I'm 45 now. It's still something I have to catch myself and snap myself out of. But this idea that I screwed this thing up, so now I must, take a log or a whip and beat yourself forever. There's a fine line there, though. There's a fine line between just saying, to hell with it, is what it is. I'm a tough guy if you don't like it, and beating yourself up. You got to learn from what you did and move on. And that's something that I've struggled with. So, back to the point. I'm flying solo today, so I'm checking to make sure our cameras are in good shape. So I guess I lied to you when I said Drew behind the camera, but he is behind the editing desk. Sometimes he's not behind the cameras, especially if I'm pointing a gun at him. But back to the point. I see so many people, they want to do something, they want to be something, they want to be somebody. You are somebody. We go through this life thinking We humans are pretty special in the sense that we all think we're special. We are special. You're like a snowflake, right? We're all a little different, but we're all still people. And we all feel like we're entitled to this sense of greatness. Well, not everybody's going to be the president. Not everybody's going to go to the moon. A couple of you were like, we didn't go to the moon. Shut up. Not everybody is going to be the guy or the girl that stands on the podium. We want that. And I don't know, that doesn't mean resign yourself to mediocrity. That's not what I'm saying. But we, for some reason, and psychologists and poets have taught about and thought about this for millennia, we feel, though, that there's something more. What is more? And that's kind of what I pondered on the beach. You know, I'm halfway through my life, maybe a little farther. Hell, I could die tomorrow, right? But as I sat there thinking to myself, I am sitting here enjoying these lovely people, my friends, my close friends, Dan and his wife Katie, and Derek and his wife Jen, and Brian and Kasha. You know, these people that are like my travel mates and my good friends and my training partners, all successful in their own lives, business owners, heads of big organizations, etc. All of us came from some kind of background where we had some success and we had some failures. But one thing, one commonality, and this is what I was thinking about, one commonality with all of us is we press on, we press on, we press on. And that, I think, is what's missing in a lot of people. This idea to press on, this idea to not quit is what lacks. And it seems like we're too quick to quit. And I don't even know if I'm talking about a specific goal, such as I want to be world champion, or I want to be the gold medalist, or I want to win a race, or I want to make this much money. I don't even know if I'm talking about that. But how about the ability, striving just for the ability to not be a quitter? I don't even mean reaching some goal, but just to not be a quitter. And you might say, well, quit from what? We too easily, when there's some adversity, when there's some hardship, when there's some toughness, we just pivot and we say enough, we're done, and we move on to something else. That becomes a habit, and that habit becomes your life. And there is nothing wrong with going through your life making $10 an hour if that makes you happy. There's nothing wrong with going through your life and making billions if that's what makes you happy. In fact, there's nothing wrong with being miserable if that's what you want to do. So as I sat on that beach, I was thinking, thought, man, I'm really lucky. I'm really grateful. I'm really blessed. Whatever verbiage you want to use, to have had the mistakes that I've made take me where I was, take me where I am. In addition, there's been some crappy stuff done to me that I really had no part in. For example, I've had all my tools stolen when I was a young man and couldn't afford to replace them. Somebody broke into my truck, had a family member getting married, and I had my kids and their mom was in the wedding. I was in my 20s. My kids were little. In fact, one of them was still an infant. They were in the wedding, and I had to drive into the city to have the kids there for the wedding rehearsal. And as I came out of the area where we were doing the rehearsal, I realized the back window of my work van had been broken and all my tools, something that took me 8-10 years to accumulate, were all stolen. And the insurance company weaseled their way out of it, right? And that's my fault. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't realize what my coverage was and wasn't, so it wasn't the insurance company's fault. I chose to park where I parked. I could have unloaded all my tools before I went there, right? So there are levers I could have pulled to change that outcome, but I didn't ask somebody to come steal my stuff. I was in a well-lit parking lot. I was in a nice area. Found out later that scumbags frequented this parking lot because it was a nice area where people have nice things, and it was well-lit and people trusted their stuff. Not the point about getting my car broken into or my truck, but there is and are things that happen to us that's outside of our control, and they're not bad. They're not always bad. Costa Rica, three years ago or so, it's become a joke with my friends. I had a bag stolen from me on my way to the airport. I stopped to run into a little store to grab a little trinket to take home. I had been very cautious the entire time with my belongings. I pulled up, my vehicle was 10 feet from me, just through the glass in front of the store. Come back out, get in the car, drove to the airport, get out of the car, and I'm like, where the heck is the bag? The bag with my passports, the bag with my cash, the bag with my electronics, the bag with thousands of dollars of stuff. And now I'm stuck in a foreign country. I was angry, I was upset, but what's the old saying, make some lemonade, right? And that's what we did. Had a good extra couple days there, learned a valuable lesson, got to see part of the country, driving across it to the capital of San Jose that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see otherwise. And truth be told, somebody that probably needed my stuff a lot more than I did, got it. At least that's what I'm telling myself now, right? Because in the moment, I wanted my stuff back. I wanted those passports. I wanted my cash. I wanted my stuff. But stuff does happen to us. That's my point. Flip side of that is we develop and can develop this attitude where nothing's our fault, where nothing do we have control over, where nothing is inside of our ability to pull those levers. And that becomes futility. When we develop that mindset, we develop this mindset of futility, like the world's just happening to us. In the last 10, 15 years, I've probably since I was about 30, worked very hard and diligently to take ownership for anything I can. That's different than taking credit, right? I'm not going to sit here and say CarryTrainer is this great business because of me. No, it's a fairly successful brand because of Drew, because of instructors that I got to learn from, because of friends that supported us, because of customers and students that supported us, etc. Drew and I and others that built it had to plug in the work to do that, but that doesn't happen by mistake or by accident, right? You had to do those things. So taking ownership is different than taking credit, just so you understand what I'm saying. This isn't like, look what I did. I'm talking about looking in your life and saying, I have what I have because of the choices I've made, and I don't have certain things because of the choices I made, period. If you don't like, the way your body looks, that's on you. Nobody else did that to you. Granted, there are some genetic things. My coach, Dan, and Mark, who both are black belts at our gym, oftentimes they are demoing different stuff. Dan, 6'2", 210 pounds. Mark, 5'6", maybe 5'5", 130 pounds. Genetics, right? I got a friend, that former NFL player, who's like 6'7", just a monster. Genetics. My mother, 4'11". That said, there is a fit version of you and there is an unfit version of you. If you look at certain people and they're in fairly good condition, you can't be like, oh, it must be nice. I bet you that fairly fit or fit person makes some choices that help take them that place, right? I hear it often. People think like I'm on TRT and stuff, which I'm not against. So far, I haven't had to do that. Genetics, partially. Choices, partially. But in my life, man, I used to trash myself. I smoked cigarettes. I consumed alcohol. Ate like shit. Not a ton. I've always been pretty good about my food, but I remember, especially in my 20s, eating fast food, early 20s, especially like on job sites and stuff, going to McDonald's or whatever and eating crap. Cost has a lot to do with that, but I quit that stuff pretty early on. I don't drink soda. It's a waste of calories, and just because something tastes good, I don't want to drink it, right? I just don't want it in me. So choices. And this isn't a pat myself on the back. As I told you, I've made a bunch of poor choices with things I put into my body, as well as lack of exercise. You can get so far on genetics, you can get so far on work. Working a physical job, people think, well, I'm working out. We get efficient at things we do over and over. That's how you can see a big plumber or carpenter with a big belly, even though they're lifting and moving things all day. They get efficient at certain movements and they eat the wrong things, consume the wrong things. We still need to move and keep ourselves fluid. Back to the point. I feel like as I'm sitting there on this beach, I'm thinking about all of these different pictures in my memory. Places, spaces, people that have helped me, people that have wronged me, people that have screwed me, people that have loved me, people that have chose to lie about me. I've also thought about people I've screwed over, people that I've lied about, people that I've wronged. In some big cosmic way, I don't think it all works out. I think we work out what we're going to do with those things. And I've had people that I have poured myself into trying to help. And they have not only slapped me in the face and stuck it in my rear end, but they've gone above and beyond to tell lies about me. But on the flip side, I know for a fact there are people in my life that have tried to help me. And I can't say that I purposely wronged them, but I can look back and see like I was not a good friend. Or maybe I made some choices that were unscrupulous or dishonest. And in the moment, I made choices and made decisions to try to affect how I think about those things rather than calling them for what they were. Meaning, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror and say that's cheating or that's unscrupulous or that's dishonest or that's dishonorable, but instead it was like, it's okay, you know, it's business or all's fair in love and war, blah, blah, blah. You try to like gloss over certain things to make it work for what you're doing or what you're trying to do. We got to learn from those things. So there I sit on this beach, toes in the sand, sun going down, thinking about the totality of all of these things. And I'm sure you guys think about these things too. Life is so short and we beat ourselves up. Had some friends kind of get into a little bit of a tussle recently. And there was good reason for it. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I think it's a good illustration. A couple of these folks kind of felt like one of the group had done something that they shouldn't have, and it really quickly kind of exploded where people were, you know, taking sides and like saying like this or that. And man, I looked at it like kind of stepped back and I'm like, does any of this stuff really matter? Like, what's the big picture? Big picture is we all care about each other. We all love each other. This guy didn't like physically hurt anybody. He didn't screw anybody over. He just did something that wasn't really nice and considerate. It was more an inconsiderate sort of a situation, but it got legs, man. And people started like just talking about it. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is stupid. And I've said this to them, like, this is dumb. This is our response to something. Like, how about we sit down, hug each other, talk it out. And there's nothing wrong with saying like, hey man, you freaking messed up. You hurt me. You hurt this person. You shouldn't have done that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But instead it just got a bunch of legs. And I really started to think about, man, how many times has somebody given me forgiveness when I didn't deserve it? Geez, how many times has somebody even forgiven me when I didn't deserve it and didn't even know I effed up? And parents, we do that stuff all the time, I think. Kind of have to. You kind of have to, especially if you're trying to teach your kids to do that. And hell, even some of us parents, I think maybe we can harbor resentment or anger, frustration against our kids, and we think we've forgiven them, but sometimes we don't, especially when those kids become to be adults. You know, my kids being adults, they're good people, but we've had some issues, and it gives me pause, maybe is a good way to look at it, or it gives me some insight when I think about the relationship I have with my parents. Like, oh, like, is this how my mom and dad feel when I don't call them back or am not available or am whatever, fill in the blank. So I guess where I'm digging with this conversation is, one, don't be so hard on yourself. Fine line there, though. It's very easy to go down this path of being a lazy, worthless bum and just being like, I'm not being hard on myself. Do have and set some real goals and boundaries for yourself. Like, here's a boundary. I'm not going to eat that. I am going to get up and exercise. I'm not going to allow myself to make an excuse. I'm not going to give myself an alibi. Alibi being, you know what? It's been so long since I've had XYZ food. I deserve that. I've been a good boy or girl. I'm going to eat it. Excuse. My knee's been hurting. I can't go to the gym. Good. Do something different where your knee's not involved, or maybe you just need to work it out. Not a doctor, not giving medical advice. But we give ourselves these alibis and excuses far too easy. So not being too hard on yourself can easily turn into becoming an expert excuse maker. Not what I mean. Do have some grace for yourself. Forgive yourself. If you don't, one, if I can't forgive me, how can I forgive you? It's different. No, it ain't. It's not at all. It's not at all different. And if I can't forgive myself, that means my headspace, and this is really what I started to think about on that beach. That means my head, one, I'm not enjoying this beach. I'm not enjoying the sunset. I'm not enjoying being with my friends because my head is 10 years ago, or my head is 20 years ago, or yesterday, or 5 minutes ago. It's not right now. So if I can't forgive, I'm back there. If I can't forgive you or whoever, I'm not with you right now. I'm with whatever happened, which means I'm not present. My life is gone. In essence, I'm dead. I am no longer interacting in the real world. The real world is this finite moment that's happening right now. The shit that happened yesterday, last week, last month, last year, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, that's dead. Which is why I don't really appreciate when people want to bring up the past and chastise somebody because of their skin color. This goes to all walks of life. Chastise somebody because of what their ancestors might have done. If you weren't there, you can't own it unless you are propagating and continuing bad behavior. People want to live somewhere they're not. Why? Because if I'm somewhere I'm not, if I'm in the past, then I don't have to own what the hell's happening today. And it's a good lesson for us if we find ourselves in that headspace where we're back there in the rear view mirror, in the back, that we're not right here. And if I'm not right here, then how can I chase dreams? How can I find peace? How can I be with the people that I love if I can't force myself to do that? And really that comes down to, this was what I talked about with myself on that beach, loving yourself enough to accept the things that you've done, even if you're not happy with them, as an item that brought you to where you're at. Kind of like a map, right? If we make a map and we said, walk out the door, turn right, walk 50 paces to the maple tree, stop. Turn to your left, walk 100 paces to the oak tree, stop. Look at the pond, walk across the pond, see the hill. You get what I'm saying? All of these waypoints, these choices brought us to where we're at. So in essence, the bad choices, the imperfect choices, the hurtful choices, the choices based in the bad crap that happened to you when you were a kid, they brought you right here. And if you don't like where right here is, then you got to identify somewhere new to be, somewhere new to go, somewhere different. And that all starts right here. I started this channel because we wanted to be of help to people. Of course, you know, the power of the gun, as our friend Mass likes to say, is a core of what we talk about here, self-protection. But to me, self-protection, this use of force, of physical violence against other humans, that's way down on the ladder of importance. way down on the scale. That stuff, necessary to know. But how about learning how to protect ourselves from our bad thought processes, from the hurt and injury and abuse or violence that was done to us as little people? How about learning to protect ourselves from overconsumption of things, like even coffee? I'm just joking. You can drink all the coffee you want, especially if it's from our sponsors, Ignis Lux. See how I plugged that in right there? Took a little serious thing into a business opportunity. If we can't protect who we are from emotional, physical, spiritual, whatever ephemeral words you want to use, if we can't protect that part of us, what's the point of having the combative skills? Most of these talks, when we have them, especially in class settings, they kind of encompass all the things we're talking about, and then they come full circle to this idea of, I'm going to die. I'm sitting in front of a fire here. All right, that fire is fuel, carbon-based fuel, right? This happens to be maple. I cut this down about, I don't know, 8 months ago. Split it. It's been curing. As you can see, it's burning nicely. Organic matter in the earth. The tree pulled up out of the ground through its roots to make fuel for itself and grow. And this tree probably lived 40 or 50 years. I don't know what happened to it. It died standing, so we dropped it, and now she burns. And now we're through the process of rapid oxidation, combustion, releasing heat, which is friggin' burning me right now a little bit, light, gases that are going up into the air, right? That's us. I mean, we come out of the ground. We are born of this place. The coffee cup says, you are made from the stars. Carl Sagan, right, talked about that. We're stardust. If you've ever read any of the posts, I gotta close this, it's burning. If you've ever read any of the posts that I put up when I lose a friend, I sign it off. You're stardust. You are stardust. I don't care what your religious beliefs are or how you think the universe came to be. All the elements are here, right? Matter can be neither created nor destroyed. It only changes forms, the laws of thermodynamics. This stuff that we're made of, just like the fuel in that tree, we're here for a little while and then we're released back into the ether. It doesn't matter if your body is cremated. It doesn't matter if your body is preserved by a mortician, which I think is gross. And then you're put in a beautiful casket, and then that casket gets put into the ground with a concrete vault, which is also very bizarre, but that's another discussion altogether. It doesn't matter if you do that. At some point, those chemicals that mortician, that undertaker puts into your body are going to break down, and the skin and the hair and the flesh and the organs and the bones at some point will be spread back into the ether. It might be prolonged. It might be prolonged by the mortician. It also might be hastened by the cremation chamber, right? You might hasten that process. But either way, you're going back. You can't stop it. I had a conversation with a friend. He's about my dad's age, in his 70s. And this man, as a younger man, was a very big, fit dude. Did personal security stuff. The women loved him. And he told me the other day that now, as he's getting a little older, he said he's just fighting to live, just fighting to stay alive. And that he spends a lot of time thinking about death now, as he never did. And I told him, and I'm not going to get preachy to a guy that's old enough to be my dad, and I said, wow, I think about death all the time. And not in a morbid way. I don't fantasize about death. I don't wish for death. I don't wish death on anyone. So don't miss my point. I, for years, have thought about my death at least once a day for a minute. And I do this. So as a kid, my dad worked He was a minister, and at different times in his life, he worked for funeral homes, namely helping pick up bodies or help with the services and things like that. And as my dad was a minister, I attended many funerals as a young person, not just for family, but maybe people that were relatives of parishioners from the church, maybe somebody I never even met, like a grandma of somebody from church. Delicious Ignis Lux. It was really good coffee. So I was around death all the time. Maybe not more than many people, but more than a lot of people. I was around a lot of death. And unfortunately, and you guys have heard me talk about this, we've lost some friends as kids to murder. Namely, a good friend of my sister's, her name was Beth. I've talked about her before. She's just a kid, just a teenager, brutally murdered, stabbed numerous times. And I remember to this day, I can see her face as I close my eyes. I see her in my mind's eye as she laid in her casket before we laid her to rest. And you see these images, and then you grow up like I did in a setting where you attach some very deeply held religious beliefs to death, to life, and you can really mess with a young kid's brain and soul and heart when it comes to inner peace, fear, happiness, self-worth, all kinds of things. So I remember I started to think about this so much that I began to say, well, I know that my thoughts are things, right? I know that my thoughts affect the outcome of my life. So I'm going to spend some time thinking about death, and I'm going to attach happy thoughts to it. And you're like, wait, what? Well, it's something I cannot get away from. I could have a tree fall on me tomorrow in the woods and kill me. I could live to be 120, and I could die on a surfboard as a 120-year-old, right? I don't know how that's going to play out. But I do know I have one choice if I am conscious at this moment, is I can choose to be at peace. I can choose not to be fearful. I can choose to find joy in this one thing that all humans have in common, which is death, right? We're all born, we all die. Even if we live 5 minutes or we live 500 years, we all are born, we all die. So why would I want to attach fear and angst and anxiety to this thing that I cannot stop? So instead, I for years have spent some time, and I don't like imagine myself dead in a casket or anything weird like that, but I think about death will meet me and I will meet it, and I will find peace and joy in this crossover from this side to the next, period. And in that moment, I'm gonna crack a big smile, and if my family's with me or I'm alone, if I'm lost on the side of a mountain and I freeze to death, or I'm buried by an avalanche, or I am surrounded by great-great-grandchildren and I'm 120 years old sitting on that surfboard, I will find joy in that moment. Because I have that choice, right? I have the choice to be full of fear or the opposite. And that, I guess, is where I'm going with this whole discussion today. We choose how we feel about everything. How often have you caught yourself, you're at a kid's recital, you're at a kid's soccer game, you're with your buddies having beers, you're doing something cool, and you find yourself filled with angst, anxiety, fear, turmoil, because you thought about bills, or you thought about somebody having a terminal illness, you thought about your own terminal illness, you thought about you messed up and you're going to get caught. You thought about something negative, and it sucked you out of the here and now, and it put you in some other place geographically, like I'm worried about this thing that happened over there, or you got sucked into the past, and now the thing in front of you can't enjoy. Does that ever happen? And then later, maybe you even beat yourself up if you get really introspective and you're like, damn, I was at my kid's recital or soccer game or my buddy's wedding or whatever, and I allowed myself to go into this spiral little crap hole because I couldn't stop it, and I let myself spiral out of control. What a waste. What a waste. We've all done it. We stay up at night. We try to drink or watch TV, or we over-exercise, or we over-sex ourselves, or we frickin' do something to try to distract ourselves. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to be distracted from my life, because as a distraction, movies, video games, TV, social media, podcasts, it's all a distraction, right? Who said this? Yeah, when I go on long drives, I listen to podcasts. It makes the drive go by fast. Why would I want to give up? If I have a 10-hour drive, why do I want to make it go away? That's 10 hours of my finite life. Just like there's only so many hours of burn time in that log. That'd be like me grabbing the axe. And I got it. It'd be like me grabbing this axe and saying, you know what, I'm gonna just chop a big chunk of fuel like this. I'm gonna chop a big chunk of fuel right off, and I'm just gonna toss it. Don't need it. I don't need it. Why would I want to just give up my life? I want to be present for it. That means even things that we don't find great joy in. Not everything needs to be super happy. It's okay to sit and cry. It's okay to sit and think about people that are gone. It's okay to sit and think about mistakes you've made, but you can't live there. You got to live right now. So I don't want to give that stuff away. So the things that we use to distract ourselves can become very easily a thing that robs you of your life. All of these phones now, they all tell us how many hours we spend on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever, right? Your phone will tell you that. Do you look? It's staggering. It's staggering. And it's really easy for someone like me to say, I'm working. I'm important. I have to play on the social media and check things and do things and stare at things because it's my job. It's not my job. My job is to be an effective communicator, not be a douchebag, share some meaningful stuff, learn from people who have meaningful stuff. It's not to get likes and views. That's my job. My job's to help people that have walked a similar path to me and can relate to me, and I can relate to them, and in turn, we both can find a better version of ourselves through shared experiences or through shared or similar experiences that have given us the same type of worldviews. I can't relate to somebody that grew up with an Olympian for a father, or grow up with somebody that had a general for a father or something like that. That's not my experience. So there's somebody else that will speak to that person, and that person will understand. Distraction. Even sitting on the beach can be a distraction from reality. But what are we trying to get out of life? I guess that's the big tie this little thing in a tight package in a bow. What are we trying to get out of it? What is the desired end state? What's the point when we wrap this baby all up? Do we want? We all want to be happy. We all want to be happy. We want to know that what we did in our life meant something. We want to know that the things that we spent our life on were not for nothing, right? That's why we get pissed when we don't like our job. That's why we get pissed when we think about, man, I'm wasting my life. This isn't helping anybody. Well, you know what? We all need toilets that flush correctly. We all need a roof that doesn't leak. We all need brakes that, when put on our car, stop the car effectively. We need the people that handle our baggage at the airline to get our baggage where it goes. We might think we're not doing something, but if I go on my vacation out of country and I brought, Ron and Holly purchased tons of school supplies for the kids, and I brought a box to Costa Rica. What if somebody lost that box? Now some kids in Costa Rica would not get the school supplies that Ron and Holly supplied. Big scheme of things, who cares? It's paper and pencils and colored markers. To that kid, that means a lot, right? What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything. It's just some kid's gonna color. That might affect the outcome of his or her life. That might affect the happiness that he or her instills in their offspring in the future. Little tiny switches getting pulled, yeah? It's very interesting. The more we delve into this stuff, the more we talk about it, the more we share about it, the more we communicate about it. I want to be open and honest. I really One thing I like about jiu-jitsu, and now it's become such a mainstream thing. So I'm a 45-year-old blue belt. In the late 90s, I got involved in jiu-jitsu, got injured, took years off, came back, got injured, took years off, came back. And so it's been like, I would never say, Cecil Birch talks about this. Somebody like me could be like, I've trained for 25 years. No, you started training 25 years ago and then you walked away from it and came back, right? People look at jiu-jitsu now, it's become so mainstream, and there's guys like, oh, you got sweaty dudes on you, oh, you got to touch people. Truth be told, what it is it's a bunch of humans that bare their soul. It's a bunch of humans that say, here I am, take me as I am, smell me, I'm going to sweat on you, I'm going to climb on you, you're going to climb on me, and together we're going to grow. Some douchebags involved in jiu-jitsu, there's lovely people, just like everything, but what you find, by and large, is a lot of very open and honest people that are willing to grow as human beings. And this is true in many martial arts. You're laying yourself out there, in a sense, bare, filleting yourself open, saying, this is what I am. Do it. Take a look. How can we be better at that? This doesn't mean that everybody that comes into your life, you've got to tell them everything that's in your head. But if I can't be open and honest even with myself, how can I be open and honest with you? I'm really personally very tired of and disgusted this community, Second Amendment-y, frickin', tough guy community, where it's this persona of, yes, you need to be a tough person if you're going to protect yourself, take care of your family and all that. But since when do we have to tell BS? Since when do we have to pretend? Since when do we have to act like we're somebody we're not? I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a special operations guy. I'm not a cop. I'm not a super soldier. I'm a carpenter that likes to shoot guns, that taught hunter safety programs, that was a gun rights activist of sorts, still am, ran political campaigns. That's my background. Do a little jiu-jitsu. I like to make fires with flint and steel. I like to throw some axes. That's me. Why do we have to pretend that we're something different? Are we not good enough? I mean, I can't go back and become somebody else, nor would I. I lost the vision in this eye as a 12-year-old boy due to a kid's mistake with a gun, which is part of the reason I'm so vehement about firearm safety and just safety in general. Little tiny switches get pulled. Some kid made a little decision with a loaded BB gun, took the vision from this eye, altered my life forever. I couldn't do some of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to join the military. Can't do that with one eye. I'm never going to become a freaking airline pilot. Never going to do a lot of things because of that. Well, too bad. So sad. Onwards, move on. That very much affected that dude in a very meaningful way, which is sad. These little dip switches that we pull in our life affect the outcome. Be careful. Be careful. But do forgive yourself, because sometimes we pull these levers and we don't know what they're going to do down the line. Sometimes we pull these levers and our back's against the wall and we make shitty decisions. Sometimes we pull these levers because we're scared, we're hurt, etc. And I'm not talking about doing, things where you're hurting people, where you're being a criminal deviant. I'm talking about the stuff that every human is capable of. You've got to let that stuff go. But you have to learn from it and strive to not do it again. I think we covered a lot of ground today. It's good for me to talk about this stuff. I've had people in my life that are close to me that I think their way of trying to hurt me is to remind me of the things I've done. You did this, you did that. And my response is kind of like, thank you. I'm well aware of that. And it's become a mission for me to forgive those people for trying to go out of their way to put their thumb on me and remind me. When somebody does something like that, it's kind of like the whole distraction thing. It's let's not look at me. Let me get really loud about how bad a person you are. Let me get really loud about what kind of an evil person you are. And then everybody will know that I'm okay, or they just won't put eyes on me. It's rough. It's a rough spot to be in, but big picture, taking a look at yourself, assess where you're at, assess where you want to be, maybe write some of that stuff down on paper. Take a look at the stuff in your life that's stopping you from going where you want to be. Take a look at the things that you're holding on to that you should probably let go, where you're not forgiving yourself. Is there somebody in your life that you're not forgiving? Forgiving also, if there's somebody that legitimately hurt you, somebody that abused you physically, emotionally, sexually, I can forgive that person and let it go. It doesn't mean I need to go sit at their house and have coffee with them and tell them I love them and I want them to keep hurting me, but I can forgive them. I can let that go. I can no longer allow the evil that was perpetrated against me to affect the way I think or interact with the world. Because again, I'm not here. I'm back there where they hurt me, right? As an example. You know, I hear people that talk about companies. F that place. They fired my uncle. Did you work there with your uncle? Do you know your uncle wasn't a lazy bum? I don't know about your uncle. I'm just saying we sometimes take up resentment and hurt and anger that others have for no good reason. Isn't that weird? Just building up walls of resentment and anger for shit that had nothing to do with us. I personally am guilty of it. I want less of that. I want more of being present. I want to smell my coffee as I drink it. IgnisLuxCoffee.com. I'm going to plug the hell out of it. I want to sit and enjoy my friends. You know, some of my friends, if they hear this, I don't care. Get the F off of your phone. Get the F off of your phone when you're with your friends. Look at them. Talk to them. Put your phone in the car. Put it in your pocket. If you're working, then work. If people that use this excuse, well, I'm working, well, then go to your effing office and work. Don't be with me at dinner. Work at your office. That's weird. It's a weird, it's actually, I'm gonna get a little vehement now. It's lazy. It's your excuse that you want to play on your phone. Show me you're writing an actual work email and not just surfing Instagram, because you're not. You're just playing. If you're driving, get off your phone and drive the car. If you're with your kids, put the phone away and be with your kids. Very guilty of that. If you're with your loved ones, get off the phone and be with them. It literally is one of the most disrespectful things that I think has become commonplace in our society. If you're with me and you're on your phone, you'll see, I've tried to not say anything anymore because I'm not your mommy, but it's super disrespectful to everybody around you, and it shows that you're basically an 8-year-old that needs crayons to sit at the table because you can't just engage in normal conversation and look your fucking friends in the eye. How about that? How about that for that little closer? This is Mickey with CarryTrainer.com. Drew behind the editing desk today, solo behind the camera. Why don't we close and we just watch this baby burn for a minute? Kind of a nice reminder of our finality here in this world, which to me brings me joy because I understand that my life being finite means that I need to take advantage of the fuel while it's burning. I need to take advantage of my time here because right now there's flames, but soon there will be only embers. Then there will be just a warm spot of coals, and then there will be nothing left but the ashes, which is really a beautiful, beautiful metaphor for our life. I take pleasure in that. I want to enjoy these flames while they last, which, final plug, is really the message of Ignis Lux coffee. Firelight in Latin. Be well. Don't be dickheads. If you dug this episode, share it. If you didn't, I don't want to hear about it. I'm just kidding. Put it in the comment section. Share what you want to talk about. I would love to hear some topics that you guys would like to discuss. I'd love to hear some people that you'd like us to interview. I'd love to hear more about stuff going on in your life. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.